Sandrine.
Hello.
Lovely to see you.
It's nice to be here. What an interesting conference. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. You're very welcome. It's our pleasure as well to see you after so long. Let me introduce you to our audience without any further delay. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have Sandrine Bardot. She's a trainer and consultant in performance and reward. She's an expert. She represents Bardot Group, which is her own company. And she's an award-winning compensation and benefits expert, a popular household name in all of the Middle East, and I think globally now as well. And it's a joy to have her with us, and you're going to learn a lot. She boasts of a 27-year career in the field of total rewards. She has taken on roles, increasing responsibilities in compensation and benefits in Microsoft, Airbus, Apple, Philips, Fiat, to name some of the organizations that she's led, leading positions of global head of performance and reward. Most recently at Majid Al Futtaim in Dubai, and then Mubadala in Abu Dhabi. As part of her outreach to educate the HR community, she authors a blog, compensationinsider.com. Please log on to it. Amazing insights, plenty to learn from. She's had over 290 articles published to date, inspiring HR leaders and practitioners on topics related to the employee value proposition. She's also a regular speaker at various HR conferences in the Middle East and world over, and we are so delighted to have you here, Sandrine. Today, she's going to be talking on the behavioral science of reward. So, going to be an exciting topic. Go take it away.
Okay, thank you so much, Helen. So let me
share the slide
screen.
Yes, please.
And put on full view. Okay, can you see the slides?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, super. So today I'm going to be talking about the behavioral science of reward. So it's a topic which is linked to the emergence over the last 10 years of the topic of neuroscience or behavioral science. And even though not many organizations are talking about it, those are topics which are also applicable to the world of compensation and benefits. So obviously in 20 minutes I cannot cover the whole gamut, but I wanted to share with you why it's important to be aware of that, and then 8 heuristics, so subconscious biases that we may have, and how that can impact how you think about designing rewards or communicating about rewards in your organization. So basically, typically, when you think about reward, you think that it's a very rational type of relationship. You have a buyer, so that's the employer. You have a seller of work, that's the employee, and they have a self-interest. They act as free agent, and to determine the price, which is how much you pay them, the amount of reward that you give them, and they trust each other. So this is the traditional concept, which is tied into traditional concept of economics, where all agents are perfectly informed of everything and make self-interested decisions. However, this is not how people react. Not everything can be explained only through pure logic. We have emotions, we have reactions, we have wants and needs, so we don't react this way. And when we think about neuroscience, what we see is that everything is rooted into 2 main things. And it comes back from our roots when we were walking in the savannah and trying to make sure that the lions were not eating us. So basically, whenever our brain perceives the threat, it focuses only on that threat, and to treat it as quickly as possible, because obviously it's linked to survival. And whenever we get rewards as well, our brain liberates hormones which are addictive, and therefore we always try to find more rewards and obtain more rewards. And this basic concept is very, very critical to the way that employees respond to how we remunerate them, how we reward them, or how we do not reward them when they're in the workplace. Now, if you have heard of the book Thinking Fast and Slow, obviously you might have heard of heuristics, which is a savant word to say the mental shortcuts. And basically, our brain processes most of the information through unconscious thoughts and mental shortcuts, because otherwise we would have too much information for our brain to be able to process throughout the day. So it's great because in most cases it enables us to be fully functional, but we can also make errors or have systematic biases. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to look at 8 heuristics and see how they are impacting the design of reward, and I've grouped them into 3 different categories. I want to say that yesterday I found it very, very interesting because Sarah Thabet made also a presentation on diversity and inclusion, and she talked also of those subconscious biases that we might have. So as we can see, those biases might affect all different aspects of our life, including our professional life. So the first bias is called the availability heuristic, and basically it means that we have a bias towards the information which is easy for us to retrieve and to use. So how does that relate to the world of compensation and benefits? If people have had an experience in the past which was positive or negative of a reward, then they will react according to that one, even if today the circumstances are different, because they've had a past experience, and that experience will drive how they react to it. So this is something that you cannot necessarily control, especially if it happened in the past outside of your organization, but that might explain sometimes why people react positively or negatively to a program that you're introducing. Okay. Another way that this might impact the way people react is that if another company advertises a job or 2 jobs with higher salaries than what you're paying in your organization, the whole organization might start to believe that the whole pay is behind the market, even if those positions that were advertised were actually the ones that were outliers. And also within HR, what we do is that we try to we tend to ignore the fact that a majority of employees might not have a problem. So if you have a few employees that are making noise about their pay or their rewards, it might be easy for us to think that the whole organization is in the same situation, being happy or not happy about it. So we have to be careful of that and try to make sure that we rely on data, even if that's not the one that is easy for us to understand. So we might want to supplement the information with employee surveys, for example, in order to make sure that we really understand how people are thinking. The next bias is called the focusing bias, and it's one that we experience in all aspects of our life. If you start thinking about it, it becomes super important simply because you're thinking about it. So how does that impact in the world of rewards? For example, you want to try and make people not think about comp and ben as an issue in the business. And you can see that this focusing bias comes into effect at the time of the annual pay review, okay? Because all of a sudden the conversation is about, oh, how much of a salary increase am I going to get? Is it going to be fair? Is it going to be same as last year, or more or less? Will it be better or less good as what my colleagues are getting, and so on? So it's important that maybe we try to reduce the conversation around that and make sure that we understand why people become so focused at one point, because we start communicating about it to the managers, and then it spreads throughout the organization and people are focused on it. The substitution heuristic is one where we don't always necessarily understand how to react to a difficult question, so we replace it with an easier one. So the typical example there would be, for example, when we are trying to make a decision about somebody's pay, let's say for an internal equity analysis or an external market adjustment, we have to look at the current salary of the employee, their past salary evolution, the market values, the internal values for the other employees who have a similar job, and their performance, a lot of criteria that would make us drive to that decision. And basically what we do in most cases, because this is so complicated to handle so many aspects, we will tend to focus on just what is the market value, and that's it. And that's where we will have this substitution, because instead of saying, do we take the right decision to make pay fair, we only look at market value. Okay, so this is where we have to be aware as HR that we might have this substitution coming in. Okay, so the endowment bias is when we think of something that we own and we put a are used to that, and it's going to be difficult to convince them to change what they already have, even if you're replacing it with something which is better. So you will need to be careful in how you communicate about it and so on, because this is in the subconscious. People don't want to let go of what they have. And similarly, we have another related type of bias, which is the loss aversion. And the loss aversion is that you are going to be, anybody is going to be more impacted by losing something of a certain value than by the prospect of winning that same value. Okay, so the impact of the loss is greater than that of the gain. So obviously, what that means, the negative impact of a pay reduction is going to be much bigger psychologically than the positive impact of an increase. And this is something that many organizations, unfortunately, have had to face in the recent months with the pandemic and having to maybe cut pay or freeze something. So you have to be aware as well of the impact that it will have on the employees that are remaining there. And also, you will have to be careful of how you manage the expectations. Set the expectations in the way that if people should receive at least what they are expecting, okay? Because if I expect a salary increase of, let's say, 6% and I receive 4%, so I have 2% of difference, I will perceive this as a loss. But if I was expecting 2.5% and I receive 4%, okay, it will not have the same positive impact on me, even though the increase would be the similar. So it's very important also that you try and manage expectations, and that might mean sometimes that maybe you kind of communicate in an informal manner what to expect in terms of budgets and so on, or in a more formal manner, so that people don't set their expectations too high and don't, based on these expectations, then feel like they've lost something, which they didn't, but in their head they did. So that's really important. Another way of handling loss aversion you might see in some executive long-term incentive plans or sales incentives, there are clauses that are called clawback. And the clawback clause is when you say to somebody, okay, you might have earned this amount on paper, but there was an external circumstance and we are going to take that back. So for example, we gave you some stock options, but the fact that you could exercise those stock was linked to, let's say, for example, the performance of the organization compared to its peer. You might have received those stock options, but if the organization did not reach its target versus the peers, then you will not be able to exercise. So this is where the loss aversion is going to play. And hopefully motivate those managers to try and make sure that the overall organization is reaching the objectives so that they don't have to lose what you have given to them. Another bias is the myopia bias. So this one is about a focus on the present and the difficulty to see the value of future rewards. And that one explains a lot of why a lot of long-term incentive plans tend to not provide the value for money that you put in them. And I know this might sound a bit controversial, but there have been studies that have proven that executives don't really know how to calculate the value of the stock that, and especially if the horizon is 3 years, 5 years, or even in some cases 10 years, they don't really value what it's going to be worth, and so they tend to discount it. Okay, because they go like, okay, I'm going to focus on my cash, and if I get it later, we'll see what it will be. So you might think that you're offering them a huge potential amount of money, but people will not necessarily integrate it in their own thinking at the same value because they struggle to see what the value could be in the future. So finally, we have in communication 2 biases. The first one is anchoring. So this one you will have seen in many adverts. Basically, people, if you start to put a number in their mind, this is what will frame how they think about that reward. So in the sales environment, for example, in retail, they will start by telling you, okay, this I don't know, handbag has a value of, I don't know, $500, but today it's on sale and it's only $250, and people will tend to appreciate that handbag and think that it's a good deal to get it at $250, whereas if they said right from the beginning the value is $250, the ladies might not be as much influenced to buy it, for example, and that's not because of not realizing, but it's just because of the anchoring that has been done. Okay, so as I've said before, employees might become convinced that if they're underpaid, if they hear somebody else is getting paid more for a similar job. So it's very important that you try to use communication to anchor in the desired behavior, okay? So for example, if you have a sales incentive plan, you should try to say, this is what we expect. You should have to try to have statements that show what should be, because that will frame how people think. And also, when you highlight those who have the best performance, you're trying to raise the bar for everybody, and it anchors the thinking that this should be how everybody should be performing or behaving, since we try to influence behavior through incentives, especially in sales. The framing bias is something which is similar. It's when people will react in a different way depending how something is presented, and that's the classic, is the glass half full or half empty. Okay, so this is about your communication. Think about how, for example, if you have so in the US they have 401ks, which is this pension scheme where people need to put money, and most of the time organizations have some kind of matching where they say, for example, if you put $100 in it, we will give you an extra $50 or another $100, for example. So in your communication, are you going to say, are you leaving money on the table if you don't enroll in the 401k? Or are you going to say, how much more could you make if you were investing $100 in your 401k? Well, if you think about what I was saying earlier, you would try to say, are you leaving money on the table? Because that's more powerful, because it's based on the loss aversion principle, So people don't want to lose. So what they're going to do is probably say, hey, I'm going to put my money there so that I don't lose that extra matching that's coming from my employer. Framing will also help you, for example, if you reduce the number of choices that you give to people. So if you give a choice to employees, you should try to make it a yes or no type of choice, or solution A, option A, option B. But I would recommend that also if you want to try and nudge people, so you should try to see that the one solution which you think is better for employees is the one that you put in the middle if you have 3 options, because the option in the middle is the one that most people by default will tend to take. Because they don't want to be, on the low side, but they don't want also to be perceived as frivolous, so to take the higher one. So most people will choose the option in the middle. So try to make it that if you think that people should take a specific choice, make a specific choice, put it in the middle in how you present the options for the employees. There are many ways that you can use this framing conversation. So some final tips to help you understand why people find it difficult to be rational about rewards. It's difficult to deal with some topics, okay? As I was saying, we have loss aversion. We try to jump to conclusions based on limited information. That was the first heuristic I was mentioning in the beginning, but also the whole way that our brain is focused on the thinking fast. And we try to create patterns and explanations for everything that we see around us. That's another heuristic which I didn't mention. So it's difficult for us to deal with something which is sensitive like comp and ben or reward, because obviously this has so many impacts on not just our financial well-being, but impact on our family. The benefits will have an impact also, and so on. So this is very important. So try to think that, and remember that money is a measure of status. So fairness and equity are going to be very important. So it's important that we communicate to employees how their pay is fair compared to that of others. And you can do that as an internal thing by doing your own internal equity analysis and communication, or you can do that through an external benchmarking as well, or even better, you can compare both. How can you do that? I am pretty sure that most organizations, for example, at the end of the performance evaluation cycle, do not communicate on a team basis or a department basis what was the distribution curve of performance ratings in the team. So if most people are rated as meeting the expectations, but some people might feel not happy to have that, when they see that most of the other team members have received the same rating, then they will say, okay, that's not necessarily unfair, because their expectation that everybody else got an above expectation is not going to be supported, because you're communicating about that. You could also communicate on what was the average salary increase received in a certain department, so that people can compare themselves to that amount. And again, you're anchoring, and it makes sure that you have more transparency in the communication. The other thing that you can try to do is to make rewards more frequent, because, as I was saying in the beginning, our brains are addicted to the rewards. So it could be, for example, that I'm not saying necessarily you need to move your annual bonus scheme to pay it on a monthly basis. But what you can do is you can implement an employee recognition program where you have gamification, you have leaderboards, and you have small rewards, that can be distributed to employees, such as points or gifts or some gift vouchers and stuff like that, which will keep people in a state of being excited and thinking that they're getting rewards relatively frequently. Okay. Remember also that most of the time, employees are not conscious and are not thinking about how they're paid, except when they perceive that it comes under threat. So if, for example, they expected a certain budget for salary increases and they discover it's going to be less, or if they think that it's unfair, inequitable, or if it is uncertain. And I'm highlighting the uncertainty because nowadays with the pandemic, a lot of organizations haven't yet decided how they're going to proceed for bonuses, for sales incentives, for long-term incentive plans, and for salary reviews. And of course, it's okay to not know yet because we don't have maybe enough data to decide. But I think that if you consider the impact that it has on employees, consider to make some communication about what you're thinking about, if you are doing any benchmarking, if you have participated in conversations with others, how the company is performing at this point in time, so that people feel a sense of direction and try to either have an expectation that maybe for this year we need to forget or have less than in the previous years, but at least we still have positively some kind of relative certainty about the job, or that if it's not going to be as much as we expected, at least they try to anchor that so that their expectations are not going to be too high. Okay, so that's very important.
Sandrine,
Yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt you. We are running a bit late, but there are too many questions for you.
Okay, that's fine.
Bonjour, ça va?
Ça va.
Excellent. There are so many questions. We'll try and take a few of them, and I'm not sure if Helen would like to discuss the questions. Let me check with Helen. Go ahead. Helen, go ahead if you can hear me.
Okay, let me just use that second to say that in the slides, which I hope you're going to be sharing with the audience, I have put together some resources at the end, a number of books and articles for those who are interested to learn more.
Yeah. 1 second. Okay, I think I'll go ahead with the questions.
Okay.
Right. Which is more effective, reward or recognition? This is from Nitya Prem.
Oh, I would say that both are needed. It's not it shouldn't be an either or in any organization. It should be always both. I think that the financial reward obviously plays to the if you remember the Maslow pyramid, the hierarchy pyramid, obviously reward comes to the safety and security concepts. So obviously this is going to be important. And it's also one of the most obvious ways that an organization is sharing some feedback with an employee or a group of employees to say thank you for their contribution. However, recognition is super, super important, especially if you can establish a peer-to-peer recognition scheme. So that goes beyond the traditional, employee of the month or employee of the year type of recognition, or congratulations for 5 years with us, etc. But where you give the opportunity for employees to send if possible, in a gamified way, send some good vibes towards their peers and other people in the organization. This creates a huge impact, and recognition is definitely one of the highest ROIs in terms of employee engagement, motivation, and productivity when you can put in place an employee recognition scheme. And typically the budget which is recommended to put in there, besides the software, is typically 1% to a maximum of 2% of annual salaries, which is not that much, and have a massive impact on employee motivation.
Okay. Another quick question. Sorry. How normal behavior and behavioral science differ?
I'm not sure that there is anything that is a normal behavior. In the behavioral science, what the scientists have been looking at is what influences people decision-making process and their reaction to situations. And we all have those subconscious biases, so we don't realize them. And the most important thing that we can do as a first thing is to raise awareness, so get informed ourselves on what they are, so that we can see if we ourselves are impacted by that, or if we can explain how other people are reacting, and then try to amend how we talk, how we present things, how we design things, so that we try and reduce or enhance the impact depending on how we want to nudge people.
Okay. Thank you, Sandrine. There are too many questions. I'm sorry for us to put it
Sure.
because the other panel is waiting on the wings. So can I request that you please log on to the app and answer them if you don't mind, because
Sure.
I would like every attendee's question to be answered.
Okay.
My team will reach out to you if you need any support, any help at all.
Okay.
And au revoir, and thank you so very, very much.
Thank you.
For being part, and you've been with us for so many years. I truly appreciate and thank you for your participation in Sports Center. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.